Now we consider privacy aspects in the context of cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Cloud is a metaphor. It's a metaphor which means that users do not see the technical infrastructure they are using. They do not see the storage machines for storing their data. They do not see the computers on which their programs are run. And they do not have to worry about how they use these computer resources. They simply get the resources which they need and which they want to have. To show this at hand of an example, let's consider cloud data storage. Here the user is able, via the internet, to store data without to know on which server the data are stored, which hardware is used for that end, with which operating systems this hardware is run. They do not know where the data are stored. They do not have to take care about how the access control, how this access control is organized. They simply, if they want to store their photos or their videos or their production documents, they can use this cloud infrastructure to store this. This is possible because there is internet, fast internet, which enough bandwidth that gives the possibility that the storage and the computer resources are no more needed to use in a local environment. Over the internet, infrastructures can be used far away, which are provided by cloud providers for the use of the user. So there is a very important development. We see this over the last year, so that the cloud technology become more and more popular, not only for the private users, which typically have difficulty with running own infrastructures, but is also very, very attractive for IT, for companies and IT companies. If we look, then we see that there are different cloud models offered. Many cloud service providers offer, for example, that the user can use a software. A software user, there is no need for the user to deal with licensing a software, with installing, configuring a software. User simply wants to use a program, service provider provides this program. This model is called software as a service. But there is also the possibility and the offer from the cloud provider to offer the usage of a platform. Say machinery with special Windows operating systems, so that the user can install his own programs, run his own programs on such platform. The platform about the providing the machines, the cloud service provider is responsible, and the user makes use of this platform in the cloud model, platform as a service. And finally, it's also possible that users simply want to have an infrastructure that frees him from running an own computing center. So cloud providers offers infrastructure so that the user can run computers there with a specified processing power, with a specified storage space, and then he can install operating system and applications he or she likes to get. This model is called infrastructure as a service. So we see there is many possibilities, many different possibilities to use a cloud. And of course, in these different cloud models, also the responsibility for what's done in that models is split between the cloud provider and between the user. So here in the software as a service, almost all responsibility is with the cloud provider. And in the infrastructure, then the responsibility ends when the cloud provider has provided the infrastructure. If we look to the advantages, then there is a big advantage for the user, that the user does not need to know, it does not need a computing structure infrastructure. When he wants to use a computing system, when he wants to run a software, when he wants to store data, he can use the infrastructure, the software system, the data storage that's provided by the cloud provider. They simply need a device to input data to the cloud and to show the results from the applications, from the software that's run in the cloud. On the other side, the cloud providers, they take care of the computing infrastructure. They install and update the programs. They offer interfaces to use this infrastructure or to use these programs. So they have professionals and they take care that the software is updated to the latest possibility, that the hardware is run safely and secure. There are more advantages that make such cloud a very attractive feature to be used by industry and end users. The users require less in-depth knowledge. Everything is offered as a service, as a managed service. For example, the backup of the data. That's, otherwise, if the computers are run on site in the location of the user, then the user is responsible to back up data. The user is responsible to update the programs that are used to manipulate the data. The user has to provide the right machinery for storage. Users simply can access their data and software with all their devices from anywhere via the internet. Also, this is a very important point. If the data, for example, are stored on a specific device from the user, only accessing this device gives the user the possibility to access the data. If the data are stored in the cloud, he can access this data from any device, from any place. Manufacturers can save on devices because complex calculations take place in the cloud. Only data input and display of the results is necessary. So this gives us a possibility with our small smartphones to run very complex application. Smartphone simply is needed to put in our data, our question, for example, for a search machine, and then all the search is done in the cloud. Large machinery is necessary to that end, and then the results are transported over the internet and can be displayed on the smartphone. Also, the data management becomes much easier. The restoration, the exchange of data. So it is relatively hard to organize backups at home at a comparable backup level, and much more expensive. One needs hardware, one needs power, software, time. This all is what's done on side of the cloud provider. And I think I didn't mention yet, but you know this, that you have to pay the cloud service only for usage. So only for that you use, you have to pay. If you have to install hardware and software in your own, have to buy hardware and to install software in your own place, you have to pay for the hardware, you have to pay the license for the software, even in cases you are not using the hardware or software. So cloud infrastructures are usually quite professionally protected against attacks. This is in our security context very important. So the cloud providers, a professional team is running the infrastructure, is installing the software. So they knew very exactly what to do and how to protect infrastructure and software against attacks. Even employees of cloud service providers that have access to user data, they must be checked, they must be kind of certificate, because this, when we later speak about security, that's a problem with the cloud services, that the people there have access to the data or to the systems. So many IT systems are now closely linked to the cloud. For example, all modern operating systems use cloud technologies. Many applications use cloud technologies, for example, to automatically update or do other things. Particularly if we look to the Apple OS X system and the iOS system, they are integrated with cloud. So for example, the photo library, the drive, the keychain, passwords, backup, including applications and application data, Find My iPhone, iPad, Mac, anti-theft software, all is linked to the Apple ID and stored in the cloud. But this is not only true in the Apple world, but it is also true in the Android world. So Android phones are integrated into the cloud. Google is responsible here. So settings, contact data, apps and application data can be stored in the cloud. So in the Android smartphone, one only has the chance to start such application, to put in data, and to see the results of the results of that application. All the computing work, all the access to data, this is realized in the cloud. Here the activity is linked to a cloud account, and also Windows 10, the OneDrive for photos and Office documents, for backup and notes, all is realized by means of cloud technology. And here there is a link to the Microsoft account. Speaking about the integration of cloud computing, then, for example, such applications like voice recognition software, for example, Siri or Cortana or Google Voice search, also work with cloud technology. Otherwise, this would not be possible to provide such kind of service and such kind of quality in the service. But there are much more examples. For example, document processing in the cloud. The browser is used as the editor for the document. So Google Docs is such an application, or Microsoft Office 365. These are web apps, and that systems can be used over the web to create documents, to manipulate documents, to share documents. Particularly, this sharing argument is very important. If the data, if the documents would be stored on a specific device, to share the documents, it needs to give other people access to this device. This is often very difficult, but if the documents are located in the cloud, then it becomes very easy to give access to authorized people. This data storage is a service which is very convenient when a cloud approach is used. For example, Dropbox or Google Drive are famous services here. Even for software development, for example, Glide9.com or CodeAnywhere.com, these are services that in the cloud that provide and that support with software development. In our course we speak about security, and particularly in this week we are concentrated on privacy aspects. What to say about privacy and cloud computing? So in order to enable cloud functionality, computers or the smartphones or the tablets must be connected almost permanently to the internet. Because to send data, to receive results, all this needs internet connection. Although not directly linked to the cloud technology, manufacturers' surveillance or collection of data and user activities is similar and uses the same technologies. So main risks are similar. without special precaution, without special operating, with special precautions. The operating system manufacturers or the cloud service providers, they have full access to the data, to all the data and to all the logs which are stored in the cloud. So the logs, the log data, give information about how the data are processed, by which application data are processed. So compromising the user account usually offers full access to all the data. So the question how to protect the account. We discussed in our course the risk of such attacks. So users cannot protect themselves against an attack on cloud infrastructure. If the attacker attacks in cloud, the user is not aware of this. The user has no chance to interact. The user completely depends from the ability of the cloud provider to deal with such an attack situation. And of course, because that cloud users are a target. Many users do not realize that data synchronization that needs to be done to for example, in a document case, to synchronize the data in the cloud and on the device of the user. It's often done silently in the background while the user is doing other things. And all data like photos or documents are synchronized within the cloud storage. Otherwise it would not work. Otherwise this would not be able that the users can have a huge amount of data and then he can click on and can show a photo from last year. So there need to be done a synchronization between the cloud and the device. So even users who are informed about such cloud technology often underestimate the risk. So users themselves are the simplest attack target for gaining access to cloud data storage. The engineering and to find out the information about the account access data. So, for example, here in the famous, which was popular in the media, was Celebgate. And what is Celebgate? Here, hacker attacked the iCloud storage, and they attacked the accounts of celebrities of iCloud storage. So, by means of the email address, which were used, by means of an email address, which were used to steal passwords via phishing mails. So in this way, the attackers get the access data of a number of celebrities, and then they use this they use the stealed passwords to get full access to the iCloud account. And then they could look through the data, and this was spectacular. They could steal private photos of a naked person and publish them on the internet to blame that person. So to prevent such events, the countermeasure to preserve privacy in cloud storage is again encryption. Simply encrypt data before uploading it to the cloud. Then, even if attacker successfully get access to the account of a user, they can see data, but all what they see are encrypted data, so they are not able to make use, to get informed or to blame a user by the content of this data. So proprietary solutions with their own client applications, protocols and encryptions are not trusted because nobody can view the source code to verify that encryption and that protocols. So cloud data storage with access via open protocols, for example, such like WebDAV There are a number of products here in products and services here, and independent client software with encryption features guarantee data security. So use for encryption such services which are famous and checked in this sense. So for example, Duplicati is one popular free software for encrypting for encrypted incremental backup. So this is a possibility to use with a free accessible software to encrypt data before storing it in the cloud. But encryption typically requires user know-how. Caution: every time speaking about encryption, the key must never be lost, because otherwise it's no more possible to decrypt the data. So here encryption is a countermeasure, but one has to deal with it in the right way.